welcome to another Enlight Photo Show, the show that's all about your photo life. It's been a while since we've done an Enlight Photo Show. We're glad to be back. We've got an awesome show in store for you. What have we got?
Well, we've been spending some time in London. We're going to take you on a trip there and show you a few cameras that you might like to look at for your children, give you some tips on getting your kids interested in photography. We took 3 kids along. They had a great time wearing awesome clothes from Alex and Alexa. Some friends of ours lent us some great gear from that fab online store. If you don't know who they are, check them out.
I caught up with our friend Dave Piper in London, who was shooting for a global fashion media at London Men's Fashion. Bit of a mouthful, but I think I remembered it right. Very, very cool photo shoot and just a cool little inside look into the cutting edge fashion world on the streets, shooting street style.
Yep, and as we do with every show, we're going to pull some books off our shelves and show you some of the images that have been inspiring us lately and talk to you about a film you might like to watch.
What else have we got? We've got a smartphone photo tip. If you already know it, then it's one of the simplest things that we're constantly amazed that no one knows about. And stay tuned, because at the end of the show we're going to round off back in London with leading UK kids fashion photographer Danny Scudamore on the couch, giving you some great tips on how to get awesome photos of your kids without the ridiculously high-end gear that he shoots with, and we're also going to get a little bit of an inside look into the way he works. So stay tuned, this is the Enlight Photo Show. So today we're playing around with some kids and some cameras, because I don't know about you, but I think it's really cool to pass on your love of photography to the next generation. And so we've got some really awesome cameras to play with. We've got a Nikon S30 in bright pink. We've got a VTech Kiddie Zoom, which is great for the smaller kids. We've got a Canon A1300, which carries them through to quite a late age, sort of 10 to young teens. And we've got some iPhones, because kids love playing around with iPhones. So we're going to find some kids, and we're going to have a lot of fun playing around with photography. Oh! Ah! Hello. So we're going to teach you the rule of thirds. We're going to teach you the inverse square law. We're going to teach you tilted horizons. And a load more. No, we're not going to teach them any of that. We're just going to have a lot of fun. So here we are at the London Eye, on the other side of the river from the London Eye. A beautiful, beautiful view. Are you ready to take the photos of the London Eye, kids? Yeah. Cool, let's take some photos of the London Eye. Woohoo! As a photographer, I really want to give the kids that are out today some simple tips on how to get great photos. But I've noticed that if you bombard them with too much information, they just lose interest. So all we've been doing is, if you're photographing something that's up and down, hold your camera up and down, and that's about it. Oh, and the inverse square law. Daisy, do you remember the inverse square law?
No.
Does that actually matter?
No.
Exactly.
So I think you can see it's pretty clear that your kids are going to have heaps of fun when you let them loose with a camera. So let's have a little chat about some of the cameras we use. We'll start with the VTech Kiddie Zoom Twist. Initially I wasn't so sure about this camera, but I put it into the hands of my 3-year-old and she loved it. Any kid loves this camera. We had a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and they all couldn't get their hands off it. It has a 4x digital zoom. It has a 2-megapixel chip. It has a twisty lens thing, so the kids can take pictures of their friends and the stuff they see, or they can zoom it around and take pictures of themselves, which they absolutely love. Any points, James?
The thing to remember with the VTech is, if you are in any way, shape or form a photographer, which I'm sure you are because you're watching the show, you will probably hate it when you first see it. It really does look like the kind of camera that you don't want to let into your kids' hands, but you have to remember that it's all about them and not all about you. So for example, it does have a tiny chip, and the photos do look really grainy and all of that, but it really doesn't matter. I completely changed my opinion the moment that I saw how much fun they were having with it. And I went from thinking it was going to be the dud in the group to actually it being one of our favourites. So definitely worth a closer look. I would probably say, particularly if your kids are at the younger end, our 3-year-old just couldn't put it down. And the photos that she took with them, yeah, they were grainy. Yeah, they were low dynamic range and murky and all of that. But she took photos with it, loads of them, loved doing it. And it gave us a really interesting insight into her life, because every now and then she'd disappear with it, run off to the other end of the house or down the far end of the little park we were filming in, and just take little photos with it. It was really, really good fun, so definitely worth a look.
Yeah, and a couple of features she particularly liked. You can put little crowns on your head. There are underwater scenes you can appear in. It does audio, and she was just singing and recording little songs, and there are games on there, so all sorts of things your kids can get really excited about.
Now it's time, I think, for me to head back to London and hang out with Dave Piper, shooting men's fashion right at the cutting edge, street style. So here we are in London. Dave's shooting street style, a little bit Bill Cunningham, which if you've been watching the Enlight photo show you'll know all about. Dave, we're at, it's not London Fashion Week, it's London European Fashion Week.
This is the London collection for menswear.
London Menswear Collection. So it's a group of fashion shows all about menswear. Dave is shooting street style, so that's just the kind of things that people going into and out of the shows and past the shows are wearing, the cool stuff for Australian GQ magazine. It's a pretty cool assignment. So tell us, Dave, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. So I've just been running around London, seeing who's wearing what, seeing who's doing what, speaking to some cool people, seeing what the new trends are going to be, so I can be like in the future I can be right on the button with my own fashion work. This is where it starts.
Nice. Very, very cool. So let's check out Dave shooting street style and some of his awesome photos.
So this time around we're going to give you a little look into this book we've got on our shelves called Anonymous, and what I think you're really going to like about this one is that it features enigmatic images from unknown photographers. So what the guy who's made this book has done, Robert Flynn Johnson, he's gone through a load of old photographs and picked out pictures that resonate to feature in this book.
With no idea about who took them.
Exactly, and what I think is great about that is it really helps you as a photographer think about what makes your photo really buzz, what makes it timeless, does it really tell a story?
And there is that constant hidden element that you have no idea who took them, you don't know why. And I have to say, when I first got it, that really, really annoyed me, because as a press photographer you're taught that caption, fill your captions with information, with the date, with your information, with the name and the age and why and all of that, so that the photos will be timeless in the archive. And so anonymous photos kind of annoyed me, but I've had this book for a little while now, and the more you look at it, the more you realise that doesn't really matter. Also, I've spent the last few weeks going through a lot of my family, my mum and dad's archives of photos, and sadly my dad's not around anymore, so a lot of his photos, don't know why he took them, don't know where he was, and I'd love to know those things, but the fact that I don't doesn't take away from the fact that they're stunning photos, some of them, that I really, really like. And that's what Anonymous is all about.
And it's got different categories in it. There are pictures of kids, pictures of dogs, there's sort of storytelling photographs, architecture, and just the wacky and the weird.
Rude photos.
There are some rude ones as well.
Right.
So, yeah, you can still get this book really easily. It's a fortune on Amazon, or you can get a second-hand paperback copy in excellent condition through Amazon.
It's a fortune hardcover. And it's not a fortune if you buy it soft cover. So if you want the really beautiful one for your coffee table, you spend, and if you want the normal one, then you don't have to. But yeah, look it up on it's Amazon, Abe, all of that stuff, really easy to get.
Totally worth taking a look at.
Gulf Photo Plus hit London for GPP PopUp, and we were there. Hobby, McNally, Arias, even Heisler himself, with more than 200 photographers from across the world, came too. Inspiring talks by day and cocktails every night with photo legends, unmissable. Film-wise, this week, that's a bit of a weird thing to say, on this show, we're not talking about a feature film. It's actually a 5 or 6 minute long film. It will totally rock your world.
Yeah.
It's called Dark Side of the Lens.
Yeah.
It's about a surf photographer, but don't let that put you off. This dude is not a check me out in Hawaii or California and the beautiful sunshine and the stunning waves. I think he's in Ireland or somewhere like that.
Somewhere cold and British.
Check it out. It's on Vimeo. The links are going to be on the screen right now. And yeah, it's stunning. It won more awards than I could remember to tell you about. It's just brilliant. You have to see it. I'm sure you know that the big word of 2013 was selfie, right? Because if you're anything like me, you take a ton of selfies when you're out on your own, when you're with friends. Selfie, 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 right? It's crazy and a lot of fun. But getting them right is much easier with a few simple tips. Tip number 1, do not use the front-facing camera on your phone. It's a much smaller lens, it's a much smaller sensor. Your photos are nowhere near as good as they will be when you're using the actual lens and camera on the back side of your phone. Tip number 1. Tip number 2, can be a bit tricky to know where your camera is pointing, right? Because you can't see the screen anymore. Dead easy. The center of your frame is always perfectly perpendicular with the body of your phone. If you remember that, then immediately your aim is going to skyrocket. So, now we know where to point the camera, how do we take the photo? There are a few different ways, depends totally on the kind of phone you're using. I'm going to show you with an iPhone. I've got a new one, slightly older one. If you use an Android phone, then bad luck. No, I don't really mean that. If you use an Android phone, then I'm sure that one of these techniques will apply to you as well, because there are thousands of them out there. If you're using an older phone, here's the trick. The camera does not fire when you press the button. The camera fires when you take your finger off the button. So put your finger on the button, frame yourself up. See what I mean? And you've got a selfie. Dead easy. Things change a little bit on the new iPhone because they don't fire when you take your finger off, they fire when you put your finger on. So how do you find the shutter button? That's easy too. The shutter button is right next to the only other button on your phone, the only real button on your phone, the home. So I know that when I frame up my selfie, all I need to do is a little bit over from the home button, a little bit different this time, and I've got my photo. Super easy. And you know what? On iPhones and quite a few Android phones, you can also use the volume button as well. So there you go, quick, easy tips for selfies. Oh, and remember, if you're not the only one in the photo and you want a little bit of scenery over your shoulder or you've got a friend with you, dead easy to frame it as well. Just move yourself a little bit off center so that perpendicular center line is just going over your shoulder or towards that amazing sunset behind you, and you'll get the perfect selfie. Check out a few that we did. top flight kids fashion photographer, Danny Scudamore, here to tell us how it's done. Just seen you shooting, Danny, with the gear. Seen a lot of your photos, obviously amazing. You're very good at what you do, but have you got any good tips from your world for the rest of the time, or for the rest of us when we're shooting with iPhones, compact, SLRs, when we don't have the full studio kit?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably try to learn a little bit more about your camera. A lot of the cameras have quite a lot of features on them nowadays, and people seem to be quite sort of scared. They just kind of stick it on the most basic automatic function and just let the camera do everything for them, which is, you know, is understandable and it's easy and stuff, but you'll probably find that there are better photos out there that your camera can take than the one that it automatically wants to do. So I would, from a simple point of view, learn the functions, just practice, try them out, see what they do.
Because the thing I'm always saying is, it's a digital camera. Don't be afraid to get it wrong, because it's so easy to delete them.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to run out of film, so you know, it's fine. Probably one of the things I'd say that was quite an easy one to do is something like flash, playing around with the different flash modes. You've got a number of them: turning the flash on, turning the flash off, having it auto, or there's the sort of slow sync shutter speed
Night
one.
shot. I think it's called on a lot of cameras. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which is the little symbol of the person with the star in the background. That is quite a cool one because it takes the flash as if it was just on auto, but then it allows the shutter to stay open a little longer to allow some of the ambient light to come in. So that's really good for shooting people when they're out at night. I started out doing club photography, and it was invaluable for that sort of thing, was just having slow shutter speeds with flash, and it was great. Another tip I'd probably do was don't be frightened to take lots of photos, especially when you're shooting kids. I take lots, you know, very rarely are you going to get the best photo the first time you take it. So don't be frightened to just keep shooting, keep taking loads of photos, and then go back and edit. You can even edit as you're going along, you know, with the back of the camera, or by the time you get home if you've got enough memory space and battery and whatever.
Cool. And obviously drink a lot. Always have a lot of supplies.
Yeah, I mean, a hip flask is always handy, you know, with you know, that's what I tend to roll.
But obviously drugging the children these days is not allowed anymore.
No, it's kind of gone out of vogue now, really.
Yeah. Excellent. Cool. Well, thank you very much for coming along, Danny.
That's all right. No
it's great to see you at work and get an insight into why you do what you do, and how you do it.
Thanks for having me.
Wicked.
Cool. Cheers.
That's it for another Enlight photo show. We hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it.
And if you have enjoyed it, check out some of the other enlight photo shows on our video channels.
I'm also dropping weekly tips videos. Those are photography tips from my many years as a full-time pro and kind of lifetime obsessive about photography. Sure, you're going to love those too. But for now, this is the Enlight photo show that's all about your photo life. Until next time.
See you later.
Attention.